One of the most common questions I get as a challenger Garen OTP is, what the heck are you building? You go like 3,000 different items every single game, and it feels like you're doing just random stuff. So in this video, I'm going to tell you why I think Stridebreaker is a bad item most of the time. I'm going to explain how I build for split push, how I build for team fight, how do you build when you're ahead, when you're behind, and ultimately just a nice cookie cutter build to also follow if you're really not sure on all of the complexities on Garen. All right, starting off with the boots. I think Garen used to be able to buy Berserker Greaves, but the problem with them is that they're just so weak. As you can see, they are 25% attack speed, and they used to be 35% before they nerfed them, I think around a year or two ago. So you would think, oh, this is the Garen boost. This is the boost that Garen just buys normally. But in my opinion, I think it's just so weak nowadays. It's way more important to have any of the extra benefits that the other boots give you, because the amount of damage that Berserker Greaves is really going to be giving you is so little, and the impact having 10 extra movement speed and slow resistance, and it costs 100 less gold. Swiftness boots, my freaking goat. Now, Ionian boots is kind of a new one that I've been really liking. I think Ionian boots are pretty underrated on Garen. Garen really likes to have just a little bit of extra summoner spell haste, since he pretty much always plays around his flash and his ignite or ghost, whatever you go. And Garen is just so summoner spell reliant. He's like a juggernaut like Darius. But he also benefits heavily from the haste, because he's kind of like Riven in a sense, where he has long cooldowns, but he's manaless. So in order to balance Garen, they give him really strong, impactful abilities like his W and his E, very high burst damage on those abilities. But the problem with them is that they just have massive cooldowns. So getting just a little bit of extra haste from Ionian boots and being able to get tier 2 boot level move speed at 900 gold just feels so incredibly powerful. And I think it's just heavily underrated. If you're ever against a tank champion or anything that's just going to be tanking your spin multiple times and you need to bring their HP down by just getting multiple good short trades, then Ionian boots are super slept on. Plated steel caps are good if you are playing versus a heavy AD team comp, or you're against a champion that wants to just stick on you and all in you. I like to go it versus Darius or Zahen or Irelia, Jax sometimes if he goes lethal tempo. Those kinds of champions that just sort of run you down with autos. Tryndamere, of course. Those you will benefit the most from Tabby. Mercury treads are not really that strong on Garen because his W already covers a lot for tenacity, so he doesn't really struggle that much. In fact, Ionian boots kind of achieve what Mercury boots want, because you have your W more often. But I think there's definitely cases where if they have so much freaking CC, like they have like a Lissandra top for some reason, and then they have like a, I don't know, like a Maokai jungle, and then you know what I mean, then you can go Mercury boots, and it does additively stack with your W instead of multiplicatively, so it actually is very strong on Garen, because you get like 90% tenacity when you W, something like that. So it's not bad, but you can pretty much just solve that problem with Ionian boots most of the time if you need your W. For your starter items, I think Doran's Shield is the all-around easiest one to pick, and it's consistently always good. It's never spectacular to have Doran's Shield, but it's still nice. I don't think it's bad at all, so you can always go Doran's Shield in pretty much every game if you really feel like it. Just know that you might be losing out, because sometimes Doran's Blade is insane. Like if I'm versus a Irelia or Zahen, or I'm against Nasus, like those kinds of champions that have weak level 1s, and you start E level 1 with Conqueror, you can absolutely just annihilate them with Doran's Blade, because that 10 extra AD is just makes you so stat checky with your Conqueror, and your E has a really good AD ratio to begin with. So Doran's Blade is a good option as always. I highly recommend it. For Doran's Helm, if you are ever versus a champion like Jax or Shen, any champion really that just does physical damage and magic damage, it is really OP because it gives you 10 armor and 10 magic resist, and it gives 140 HP on top of it. So it's just really overstated. It's very gold efficient. Of course, there is a downside, is that it doesn't give you the regen that Doran's Shield does, and it also doesn't give you any AD like D-Blade. So it's this kind of like weird in between where it's really strong in all-ins like D-Blade, if they have full like committal all-in damage that also has some magic and physical. There's also longsword refill as an option as well if you're versus a really uninteractive lane. Like if you're versus Singed or something, going longsword refill is really nice because then you can rush your Tiamat right away, which gives you even more wave clear, way faster wave clear. And now for the cookie cutter build, I know a lot of people want something like this. I don't think it exists anymore on Garen because they nerfed crit so hard that you can't go more than 50% crit anymore. So you can't go that Stride, PD, Infinity Edge, Mortar Minder every single game anymore. But if you do want a good damage build similar to that, and it's not going to ever be as good as that, but if you do want something every single game, very shrimple, very to the point, Stride, Phantom Dancer, Mortar Minder, Ghostblade, Shojin last item, I think this is going to be consistently the strongest that you can go every single game if you want something that's just shrimple and you're learning League and you don't want to complicate it. Now moving on to the Triforce standard build here. I think that this can be really good versus melee comps if you are versus a champion like Aatrox and then their jungler is like, I don't know, a Mumu, and then maybe their mid laner is only like an Ahri. Like it could be an Ahri, but as long as it's not like something like Anivia, something really cringe for Garen, then the team comp can allow you to just completely skip Stridebreaker, and you're just going to get so much dueling power, and you're going to get so much team fighting power out of this, because Garen is kind of an assassin nowadays. So this is super slept on. I think people absolutely need to be going a Triforce more. You can give this a try. Also, just a quick note, you don't always have to go Phantom Dancer with it. If they have really tanky champs, you can just go Mortar Minder second. Like, for example, if I'm versus Aatrox, and then they have, like, Rek'Sai Jungle or something, then it's really good for me to just go Trinity Force into Mortar Minder. You can also go this with Conqueror. You can go this with any rune you like. I think it's very powerful, though. Just try it out, man. Like, you're gonna see. It's really crazy. For the anti-ranged build, like if they have ranged champions all over their comp that are all squishy and have low armor, going Stridebreaker into Ghostblade is really powerful because all you need to do is catch up to them, and the lethality is just going to absolutely shred them. After you get your Stridebreaker, if you just survive versus a ranged top like Kale, you buy Stridebreaker's rated Dirk, she's actually just going to get cooked in side lane until she outskills you, of course, at like level 16. But as long as they don't have armor, Ghostblade into Phantom Dancer is just such insane tempo on the map. You can pretty much just assassinate any range champion while also running around at Mach 10. And you don't have to necessarily go no armor pen. Like, you can slide in a Mortar Minder if you really want. Like, you can just go at like third item after Ghostblade. Like, especially if you're against something like Gnar, you might even want to go Mortar Minder or LDR second, because some champions like Varus top or Gnar are just super tanky even if they're ranged, and you can even go Deadman's third. You can kind of change up the order as you see fit. You can also go Force of Nature instead of Deadman's Plate, by the way. But I do think in general, like, this is the best setup versus ranged champs. I just love to have that move speed, and usually if you catch up to them, you one-shot them anyway without needing armor pen. Now for the side laning versus melee champion build. Now this one's a little bit more tricky, and you have to do a lot more order differential stuff. You can't really always go the same path. As with pretty much every Garen build, you can't always do the exact same thing. But there's just different counter items, and I'll explain my reasonings for why you go these different items for certain champions. So, for example, Triforce is just the #1 best 1v1 item in side lane versus pretty much any melee. There are some exceptions though, like if you're versus Darius or you're versus Set or sometimes Zehen, you might need to run away unless you're really fed over them. Going Stridebreaker will still be nice instead of Triforce, but 90% of the time, if you're fed versus a melee champion and you want to split push and you notice, oh, my team is freaking inting, I should just go side lane most of the game and collect all these side waves and win side lane and avoid getting ganked or whatever, then you can just go Triforce, and that's gonna be fine. It's pretty much the best item most of the time. Very few exceptions where I'm like, nah, I need Stride instead versus this melee character. You know, maybe if I'm versus like Jax, I guess there's a few, but for the most part, I think Triforce is just better. You can go Phantom Dancer second if they aren't building any armor. Let's say I'm playing versus like Riven and I got like a huge lead on her and she didn't go Eclipse. Then I can go Phantom Dancer second to have tempo and still catch up to her. You know, move speed, wave clear, just more attack speed on towers. Triforce PD is absolutely demonic if you're fed. If they start building lots of armor, like if they go and rush plated steel cap second and then a HP item, doesn't matter which champion it is, by the way, then you go the Motor Reminder second. If they're like a bruiser, like Riven, Camille, whatever, you know, Jax, then you're going to need Stride Breaker, Motor Reminder, or something like that. Or in most cases, Triforce Motor Reminder is fine. You can also go LDR second versus HP stackers. Like if I'm versus like Cho'Gath, then I will go LDR, or if I'm versus Scion or Mundo, if you go Triforce LDR into Shojin, then it's super good. You don't want to go Motor Reminder and Phantom Dancer, by the way. You don't want to go both of them at the same time, or LDR versus a tank, because then they're just going to go Randuins if you go 50% crit and then you're cooked. So it's really important if you're versus any champ that can build Randuins versus you, make sure you only go Triforce LDR and then go Ghost Blade. Do not go Phantom Dancer, because if you go Phantom Dancer with it, the damage is just going to get increased by a large percent. So don't do that to yourself. However, if they can't build Randuins, or they won't, or whatever, and you're confident they won't, like if I'm versus I don't know, Camille, and I am just destroying her, then I'll go Triforce PD Mortal, and that is the best in my opinion. If they, like I said though, remember, if they do end up buying Tappy, make sure you go Motor Reminder second. For the other items, sometimes certain champions like Mbessa are just insanely powerful with all of their shielding. Riven as well, like she will go Eclipse, and the shielding is just too much. It's super cringe. Or if you're versus Yasuo or Yone, you should absolutely just rush Serpent's second item right away. If they even have a Yasuo mid lane or a Yone mid lane, sometimes you just have to go Serpent second just in case they match you, as long as you still beat the top lane champion as well. So you kind of have to also start comparing in your head, like, oh, what will I need to win versus the mid laner too? Most cases it's fine though, but this is important as well to change the order. Sometimes you're going to need the Serpents. But in general, you know, it's fine to just go Triforce PD Mortal, but those are some options. And then for the rest of them, like Shojin, for example, like I said, mainly for tanks, it makes your rotation of your abilities over and over. Like if you go Triforce LDR Shojin versus like Mundo or something, and then you sit on Executioners and you buy Chempunk Chainsword later on, it's fine, right? Then you can go Ionian Boots with it, and you literally just have like low haste because, or not low haste, you have low cooldowns because you have Triforce giving you 15 haste, then Shojin will give you 25 ability haste on your Q and E, and then Ionians are going to be giving you like another 10. So you're basically going to end up with like around 50 ability haste, and your E and your Q is literally going to be a nuclear bomb on the tank. So I heavily recommend this if you're not wanting to team fight versus a tank. Otherwise, the Sterax, for example, let's say I went Triforce PD Mortal, then I went Deadman's Fourth, so I had some more tempo on the map, but I also wanted HP, because I want to be able to rotate with some HP into a team fight and not be super squishy. Then it's nice to have Deadman's. I can finish it off with Sterax last, you know, for a build like this in this order. And that's pretty good, you know, if they have no Randuins champs and whatever, and I'm snowballing and I don't need to build even more damage to keep split pushing. It's more of like a split push rotate build with this. But yeah, in general, if you just go these items in different orders versus the champion that you're against, and you think about, which one will be better here? You know, this is pretty much all you need. You don't really need anything more than this. There is also a Cyclo Sword, but I don't really like it. I pretty much never go it. It's not bad. It's just the problem is there's so many better options, right? Like if I want to have damage, I can go PD and it gives damage and move speed. If I want to have Armor Pen, that like multiplies my damage like crazy versus a champion that even just buys plated steel caps, then it's really nice to just go Mortal instead of Voltaic. I feel like Voltaic is fine if you're versus like squishy champs, maybe, I guess, but I don't know. I don't really like it that much. But yeah, that's the side lane versus melee build. Most of those items are just to make sure that you can always have push, whether you're trying to dive them under their tower and you poke trade them, or you're just trying to split push into rotate build. Either way, you just need to build the right items so that you're beating them in side lane. They have to respect you. Now for the team build, where you basically are, maybe you're behind, or you have a really fed ADC, and you have a lot of strong AD champions on your team that you can just sort of go in and out for them for, and you just kind of like bait the enemy team and whatnot, and you just engage, and then you die, and all that kind of stuff. This is the perfect build for it. I really like to just have Stridebreaker for team fights, because at least you are able to kind of just like run in, maybe do a little bit of a spin, Stridebreaker, get out, right? That's the idea. It's also easier for you to run up and just press R, which is pretty much what your champion turns into. If you're behind, you just basically become an R bot. So having Stridebreaker to just catch up and consistently navigate fights is important. If you are also having like a strong assassin jungler like Zed and Neferi, Talon, and then maybe you have a fed Jinx or something like that, Black Cleaver is going to really enhance their damage, because not only does Garen's E-Shred also give armor pen, or actually rather armor shred, which reduces the actual total number, so that your AD champions, all of their physical damage is also going to get buffed, not just for you. You can also go Serpent's Fang right afterwards. Pretty much the most common 3 that I go whenever I'm super behind is I go Cleaver to enhance my physical damage carries on my team, and I go Serpents to reduce any shielding that might be applicable if the ADC even just has Barrier, or the support has Guardian, they have Locket of the Iron Solari, they have, I don't know, maybe they have Yone mid with a shield bow again. Maybe they have Vi with Sterax. Maybe you fed a super fed set now, and he's got Sterax and his W shield is massive, or they have a Mordekaiser that's fed, or they have a Darius of Sterax. Boom, you slap that Serpents on, and boom, now they're going to get one-shotted with your R. That's the most important thing, is that you sort of just become this utility bot that also soaks up damage and baits abilities and soaks abilities, while also still providing those debuffs that Garen can give, like a Silence, Armor Shred, and that R that's point and click that just executes off of your team's damage. Also, if you are really struggling with how much damage they're doing and your move speed, then you can always go Deadman's. You can even go Deadman's second if you want, like this. Oops. Deadman's second into Cleaver, into Deadman's into Serpents. You can go in basically any order. You can also go Motor Minder even if you're behind and if you're playing for your team. If their healing is really that insane, you could literally go like Stride Mortal Serpents if they have like super strong enchanter like Sona or like Seraphine, something like that. And you know, they have a bunch of shields elsewhere. Like if they have an Olaf, then boom, you go, maybe you sit on the Executioners, you don't actually upgrade Mortal, you actually go like Serpent's Cleaver with the Executioners. Then you're just like the ultimate debuff, you know? You can also like just go Chempunk if you want, you know, if you're like building your Executioners in your full build, you know, and you don't want to build Mortar Reminder. Force of Nature, of course, same idea. Sterax, same idea, helps you navigate team fights, stay alive long enough, become a chunky guy, big shield. You basically will just build these items in whatever order you think is good for certain champions. Know that it's basically to just play for your team, because you're not going to side lane with these items, really. It's not that easy. You just push the side lane wave, catch the side lane wave, whatever, and then you show up and make sure that you debuff whoever needs to be debuffed, and you one-shot who needs to be one-shot. And now for the 1v9 build, I think if you were like super giga snowballing, and especially if you're playing something like Conqueror, this is the best build. As long as they don't have too much armor, like so much armor like spread out everywhere, then maybe you'll need to have some armor pen second instead of the Phantom Dancer. But honestly, I think it's so important to have an item like Phantom Dancer second as your tempo item versus melee champs in side lane. You basically always get shoved. You can mop up all of the side lane waves. And then Guardian Angel is such a underrated item on Garen. I think in general, if it's really late in the game and you're fed, just buying it, it's just good. It's good on pretty much every single AD champion. Pretty much everyone should be buying it more. It's in solo queue, it's insane. If you get caught out and you went in too early, your team can start walking in and trying to cover for you when you respawn. Or you can actually use Conqueror super aggressively, because a lot of Garen players are kind of missing out on that phase rush, right? Phase rush felt easier to carry the game with because you could do super illegal stuff in fights. You could like run in, one-shot the ADC, Stride Breaker, boom, phase rush activates, and then you run away, you know? But now you have Conqueror, and if you use all of your Q move speed in, you're basically going to be committing your only escape tool inwards, which is a problem, right? So having GA allows you to just kind of do some pop-off fights and not lose your shutdown for it, which is really important. You don't want to lose your shutdown if you're really fed. So GA third is just phenomenal, really underrated. I highly recommend Stride PD into GA if you're a monster with Conqueror. Specifically with Conqueror, it's the best. Afterwards, you're going to want some armor pen, of course. Maybe you could go Motor Reminder if you really need anti-heal. You can also go Lord Dominic's Regards. It's like covered up here, you know, if they have lots of HP, but usually, I think Motor Reminder or Cleaver is better. They're just cheaper items. So you could absolutely go that. Maybe Cleaver is better sometimes even if they're just squishy enough, but like just a little bit tanky, then it's still better to have that extra HP and then you still have the armor pen damage that you need. It sort of just depends. Motor Reminder is for like even more damage if you really need it, like boom, I need more damage. But like Cleaver is like kind of this nice in between where it's like I need damage, but I don't want to go too crazy. I need some HP, I need some haste. You go Sterak's last here with this build as well because it's really good synergy with GA. Your Guardian Angel and your Sterak's are just going to be keeping you alive so many times. It will blow your mind how much you live when you have these items. So it's like really OP to just have Sterak's and GA at the same time when you're fed. Because again, you're not going to lose your shutdown. And these items are actually still really damaging. Like GA has 55 AD in it and it has a BF sword. Like if you show up with a Stride Breaker, Phantom Dancer, and BF sword, like, and you're like 5-0 on Garen with Conqueror, you are an absolute menace. So it's just insane, you know? And it just protects your shutdown, allows you to make pop-off fights happen, and your team can cover for you as you respawn. And for finally the situational items, if you have enchanters on your team or you're versus a champion that won't proc Force of Nature that easily, but also like kind of just chunks you really hard when you side lane versus them. A good example might be Cassiopeia or any of those weird AP champions that you're against, you still want some passive healing afterwards, you walk away from them and you want to drain their mana, then Spirit Visage actually can be insane, because if you pair it with a Sterak's and with an enchanter on your team, it just has so much more value than Force of Nature. It also costs 100 less gold. Very underrated item actually on Garen. There's just really like situations where I will go at like third or fourth or fifth item, depending on if I already have Sterak's, if I already have an enchanter on my team, like a Soraka, Milio, because it just increases your healing by so much. And the shield size, it works on your W. So if you ever versus some AP champs that are annoying, plus you have, you know, augmentable stuff like healing from enchanter, etc., then it's really underrated. Definitely try it out more. It also increases your Guardian Angel healing as well. You also have Randuins here versus heavy crit champs, you know, versus the Tryndamirs, the Yones. If there's like a 10-0 Yone or like a 10-0 Sivir and you don't go Randuins, you are not going to be useful versus them. So it's really important to buy this item sometimes versus Giga Fed crit stacking champions. If they have like a Graves jungle and they have a Sivir ADC and they're both fed, you can pretty much shut down like a large portion of their damage with just this one item and then go all kinds of whatever you want afterwards. Also, Canik Rookern is here if you are versus Giga Burst, like let's say you're against like Xerath or you're against like, I don't know, Aurora, and you want just as much shielding as you can get, like anti-burst for magic damage. Canik Rookern is also an option here. If you don't have the benefits from Spirit Visage that you would have normally, like you don't have an enchanter and you need that burst because it's like a 15-0 AP champ that won't proc Force of Nature, then Canik Rookern's good. If you're playing that Garen build that I showed you earlier, the play for team build, and you're sort of just stacking a Randuin's and a Deadman's together, then sometimes if you're really just a full-on tank that game, which is rare, unless you're like really inting, Jack Show can be a good item because it increases your resistances by 1%. So if you already stacked resistances before, it can actually be really powerful by how much it just gives you in terms of resistances. If you have a really fed team, you know, you can go this item sometimes, especially in your later item slots. Hullbreaker is still an option if you are versus a giga annoying side lane mage and you want to really split push. Like let's say I'm versus Anivia or something like that, or I'm versus Aurora or any of those weird annoying mages in side lane, even a Orianna. You can hostage them very easily with Hullbreaker because mages really struggle with taking the Hullbreaker cannon, and it also gives you so much split push pressure because if they don't match you, then you start breaking towers really fast, especially if you pair it with a Phantom Dancer. So if I'm ever versus Anivia top or something like that, I like to go Hullbreaker third item after Phantom Dancer so I can just hostage her in side lane so that she cannot go to team fights where she is way stronger than me, because Anivia in 5v5 is just an absolute monster. So very good to hostage mages with this item. Alrighty, and that's about it, gamers. I hope that was useful. If you have any additional further questions about any of the item stuff, feel free to ask in the comments down below. You can also join my Discord server. The link will also be down in the description. And if you really need as well, and you want to get really good at Garen very quickly, I have multiple coaching clients that I've worked with in the past that have been very happy after I've coached them. They've climbed really quickly after I tell them all about Spellbook, how to win versus range top, how to carry and push your lead across the map. So yeah, if I do coaching, I offer $50 for an hour and a half of VOD review or live game. So you can always check that out as well if you want. All of the relevant stuff is down below in the description. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you all have fun spinning on the Rift, and I will see you later. Bye bye.